Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us. It's 6 days to go before Election Day, and this is your countdown. Hello again, you're watching Decision 2018 Countdown, Mondays through Thursdays, 7 p.m. via Channel 4 and 504 and streaming live on Facebook. Tonight's guest needs no introduction. We have with us Senator Positive T.A. Nelson. Senator, welcome.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
Senator Nelson is pretty well known around the community, and that's why I'm saying he needs no introduction. But for those who don't know, he spent 7 terms in the Senate, 14 years in the legislature, and it's a really, really long time. We're really glad to have him here with us because Senator Nelson has a direct connection to the topics that we want to talk about tonight. Let's start off with the top of our list here is your medical marijuana legislation. Let's talk about that. You mentioned earlier that you had it moved from the Health Committee under Senator O'Reilly and had it moved to the Economic Development Committee. And what was the reason for that?
Well, as most people know, Senator O'Reilly is adamantly against legalization in any form. And as the chair of the committee, she's very reluctant to hold a hearing, and I don't believe she's capable of having being unbiased in chairing such a meeting. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me that she did not have the hearing, but I did get it moved on the last session to the floor, to the Economic Development Committee, chaired by Senator James. So my hope is that we just give the legislation a fair hearing because the people voted in a referendum in 2014, and as we see, there's 34 states legal now, and CBD oils are now available all across 50 states, and our residents here are now using it as well as they're now appearing in stores here, and they have seen the benefits. So I'm still trying to see what I can get done prior to leaving the legislature.
So whether or not you like it, people see you as, of all the senators in the legislature, the champion for loosening at least the regulations surrounding marijuana in the Virgin Islands. You managed to decriminalize marijuana in December 2014 if the person possesses less than 1 ounce, and then they pay a fine of $100 or $200, I believe. And then, of course, there's a medical marijuana referendum in the election of 2014, which was in favor of
56.7% in favor.
Right, and now you're.
And then there was hemp. There was industrial hemp as well that was passed.
Right. Yes. So these efforts have encountered resistance, not just within the Senate, but also in the community. And one of those criticisms is that marijuana might be a gateway drug especially for young people.
Well, it's unfortunate that there are those who will still claim that when research has proven different. I mean, just look at the straight math. If cannabis, commonly known as marijuana, was in fact a gateway drug, you would have more people using some of the heavier drugs because there are many people who will tell you that they've tried marijuana. And unfortunately, people reference or refer to cannabis marijuana users as people they see hanging out on street corners. The true face of cannabis don't hang out on street corners. Marijuana users, the true face of marijuana users are not going to be on street corners but let's face the fact. A working professional does not want to disclose like it's being in the closet. It was like the gay movement. The real cannabis users are in the closet because of the demonization, because of the workplace, because of the stigma because of our reefer madness since the 1930s. So the truth is, the research has now caught up, and there's science and there's statistics and there's data that proves a lot of these misnomers to be wrong.
One of the other criticisms, or I guess it's more of a fear, is that because marijuana is still a Schedule I drug, that the federal government might crack down on the Virgin Islands in spite of an Obama-era agreement that says, the federal government had decided just to leave alone the states.
Right. Let me be clear. The federal government is the federal government, and they can do whatever they desire. But the federal government is very unlikely to do such. Let's face it, 34 states are, in fact, legal cannabis is available. The federal government has limited resources. The federal government has given some sort of sovereign rights, which the Virgin Islands, though we're not a state, we still are entitled to those rights. And so long as we're backed by like a referendum, and so long as entities are operating within the laws of this jurisdiction, this territory, the federal government will not come in And even if they do, they will have to hold a case, and the jury has to be by peers. And so long as that jury understands the local laws, the federal government will lose that case. And that is why they don't pursue such cases. Now, for the past 8, 9, 10 years, I've sort of really jumped in researching this whole cannabis. So I'm not trying to act like I know it all, but the federal government is about to reschedule cannabis in some sort of way, even if for the medicinal aspects, even if it's for just the veterans to allow for treatment of PTSD. The federal government is right now conducting human tests. Matter of fact, one of the testifiers who came for the bill, Dr. Susan Sicily, she's been contracted by the federal government to do tests for PTSD on humans. So the word in Washington, and is right now even in the Farm Bill as we speak, the federal government is going to make some kind of move. What it is, we don't know, but it's going to loosen regulations in some way. It might be a deschedule, a reschedule, or some kind of shift.
Well, Attorney General Sessions did signal that he was going to take a closer look at that agreement with the Obama administration. And also, Senator, I wanted to ask you, now that you're not going to be in the 33rd legislature, what's going to happen to the medical marijuana legislation?
Well, I was successful, as mentioned. I pushed it past Senator Riley's committee. Senator James has set a date, I think, of November 27th for a hearing. Okay. So I'm hopeful that my colleagues see the wisdom. And let me just point out, I happened to bring a one show and tell. I forgot some of my other show and tell. But this is some of what is this here. This is cannabis and coconut oil. Okay, this is very popular in the territory, by the way, and people are using this for pain, insomnia, for eczema, you name it, sugar. It's natural cannabis medicine.
And it has the legal amount of THC.
Well, to be frankly honest, this is a whole plant compound, meaning this is not CBD only.
Okay.
This is extracted from the whole plant. This is cold pressed coconut and cannabis oil.
It has THC in it.
It does have THC. Does it have enough to get you high? No. Right? But can it help? Because if you have a skin rash, you put it on there and see. And I'm holding this up to say that when we talk about marijuana, most people, I might as well be sitting here with a joint in my mouth, because that's what people see, even though you're saying medicinal marijuana. Let me make it clear. Smoking marijuana is the least healthy way to use it, even though you can still get benefits from it. People who have to use the vapors vaporize it so they don't burn it.
Right.
Okay. And for those who want to say anything else about the side effects, every drug has side effects. If the side effects of this is sleep, if the side effects of this is make you hungry, those are good side effects. I was laughing the other day listening to an advertisement, and I listened to all the side effects, including liver damage and all of these things, and then it says the choice is yours. Well, with medicinal cannabis, the choice is yours. Do you want to take a medicine that's going to eat apart your insides, or you want to take a medicine that's going to offer you relief, offer you treatment without the side effects that's going to damage your body further? And that's what research is proving. Let me just say this, and I want the people to look it up. There's something in your body called the endocannabinoid system. It's an immune system within your immune system. It is named after cannabis because they discovered it while doing research on cannabis and why it is so effective in treating human ailments. So for me, we need to move forward. For me, I'm even hoping that my colleagues can see the wisdom to go further than just medicinal and have an adult program, an adult recreational program.
All right, Senator, we're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about another big topic right now, or at least it should be a big topic, which is reapportionment of the legislature. You're watching Decision 2018 Countdown. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Decision 2018 Countdown. 6 days to go before Election Day. We have Senator Positive T.A. Nelson with us today. And Senator, earlier we were talking about your medical marijuana legislation. So really quickly, before we go to reapportionment, I was asking you what would happen if the medical marijuana legislation didn't get passed in this legislature, and in the next legislature, the 33rd legislature, you're not there anymore.
Yeah, well, it's incumbent upon the people of the territory, since it's a people's referendum, you voted on it, you said this is what you wanted, to push on the next legislature and individuals in the next legislature, if we aren't successful now, to pass the legislation. And if this one doesn't cover what you want, like recreational, to push for that. It's people drive policy, and it's up to the people to understand that. And hopefully we can get a movement before I go. If not, people, let's continue to drive the force. I'm still going to be in the territory, and I'll still be an advocate one way or the other. As a matter of fact, I'll probably join the national scene as well as advocacy is concerned.
So speaking of people driving policy, we've certainly seen some of that in this reapportionment initiative that the St. Croix government retirees is proposing. I think we have a little graphic here that kind of just tells you what the reapportionment of the legislature would be. Senator, do you want to just kind of give us an overview of this
what it is?
effort?
Well, generally, reapportionment is deciding how the electorate elects senators. And for me, I have a reapportionment bill proposal, which proposes to have 11 senators, 3 from the St. Croix district, 3 from the St. Thomas, St. John district, with 1 being from St. John, and 5 running at large, to be 11.
Senator, we're going to go to your reapportionment proposal in a little bit.
Okay,
let's do the one that's up for special election in March 2019. And this is going to be part of our public education effort.
Okay, no problem.
Right.
But they propose to keep it at 15, but they're going to have 4 district senators from St. Croix East, St. Croix West, 4 from St. Thomas, St. Croix East, St. Thomas East, St. Thomas West, 1 from St. John. And that's where my problem really comes in.
St. John is its own district.
St. John is its own district, and then 6 at large. That's where my problem comes in, and with the major difference between my proposal and their proposal. Currently, the at-large senator must be a resident of St. John. We could slice it however we want to. That gives this St. Thomas, St. John district 8 senators. And even if you say you want to propose giving St. John its own district senator, St. John heavily relies on St. Thomas's infrastructure.
Right.
So any resident from St. John is going to vote as though they're from St. Thomas.
So basically, a St. John senator is going to be, in practice, a St. Thomas senator.
I've been a senator
for
14 years, and I've seen where the senator at large, because currently must be from St. John, votes sort of aligned with the St. Thomas senators. When there's a down the middle, head-knocking votes between St. Thomas and St. Croix, the St. John senator is supposed to be being pulled at, and they always remind who that person is that, listen, remember, you got to come to St. Thomas to go to St. Croix. So for me, my whole issue with reapportionment and my concern with
this particular initiative.
Yes, and it's so unfair to call it the retirees' proposal, because it's not all of the retirees' vote. There was no vote taken to prove that, but despite all of that, they are basically saying, and the heads of this, Mr. Moorhead and his sister, that this is the only way to go. Anybody that comes up talking like that, this totalitarian type of attitude, is not open to other discussion. We should be bringing this to the table, and not in any haphazard way, have keen deliberation on this, or whatever, however long it takes.
You said very heavy contemplation.
Yes, because we don't just want to be bouncing all around. Congress did give us some rights, but we want to appear or seem that we know what we're doing here. So,
and the other criticisms as well of this particular initiative is that it's going to split St. Thomas and it's going to split St. Croix, but it doesn't specify where the lines are going to be drawn to split the districts. And then also, it might give St. John residents a bit less power, because now they can only vote for 1 senator from their district and the 6 at large. They can't vote for the senators from the St. Thomas district.
But if you notice, the proponents themselves had trouble explaining this when they were in front of the legislature. So truth behind it, oh, well, that's going to be on the legislature to draw the lines. It's going to be on the board. And so by even saying that or suggesting that the legislature draw the lines or draw the borders, or, however they're going to be marked, whether it's by population or by geographic location, those things take a little study. Okay, those things don't just pop up. So for these individuals to just push this like that, I think it's irresponsible, and never mind to say, making it appear that reapportionment is going to empower a senator to get roads fixed.
Potholes fixed. Which is really the executive branch.
Exactly. So it was quite misleading, and that doing this is going to give the retirees their retroactive salaries. So they told the retirees or the people that they had signing this what they wanted to hear in order to get support.
Senator, let's talk a little bit about your reapportionment initiative, and I believe we also have a graphic here somewhere. Now, your reapportionment proposal is to reduce the number of senators to 11.
Yes. 3
on St. Thomas, 3 on St. Croix, no splitting the islands, and then you have 5 at-large senators.
Yes.
Yeah. Talk about the pros and cons of that.
Well, hear this. Before 1966, there were 11 senators. Okay, and the people have often spoken about reducing the Senate. So this reapportionment took all this into consideration, okay? Went back to something that worked before. Now, I understand where they're headed, and I'm with that in conversation, okay? But how we go about it, what they want are district reps. They want reps that's closer to the people. I can support that. But what you're saying is we'll be creating a bicameral legislature where we'll have a reduced Senate, whether it's 3, 6, whatever, and then you'll have a House of Representatives pretty much, where that house will be a bigger house because then you'll have the various jurisdictions represented there, and the levels, the items that they're going to discuss in that house and passes, then it comes to a second house, so it has 2 clearing houses before it gets to governor's desk. Mine, as you see here, 3, 3, and 5, it contemplates reducing the numbers as it was in a referendum years ago, and the people wanted it. And I think there's room for this discussion.
And equal numbers of senators for St. Thomas and St. Croix.
Yes, because that's my concern. That's why I believe currently St. Croix is disadvantaged. That's why if you notice, look at St. Croix and St. Thomas, St. John district, you'll see that this district is a lot more going on. And so I believe that, again, I'm not tied to it. I heard them with the conversation. I blame the Senate because this actually came up years ago and they never heard it.
Yeah. Senator, very quickly, we're going to take a little break, but what happens with your reapportionment proposal?
Well, and that I'm very confused about because I too asked that question. So now that it's a citizens initiative, what happens now? The legislature had it agreed with this. They will put that out as the legislature's proposal, and 2 of those will be on the ballot. But the legislature has not acted on this. I don't think they're going to act prior to the end of this term, so it's probably going to die a quiet death.
Oh,
you know, it's unfortunate because this was introduced about 5, 6 years ago.
Yeah, and it goes into detail on what it means.
Yes, and then the voting and the years and all of these things. You know.
Alrighty, Senator, we're going to take a little break. You're watching Decision 2018 Countdown. We're here with Senator Positive T.A. Nelson. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Decision 2018 Countdown. 6 days to go before Election Day. We're here with Senator Positive T.A. Nelson. And earlier in the show, we talked about his medical marijuana legislation. We also talked about the reapportionment initiative, which he also has one of. And we kind of compared and contrasted the pros and cons of that. This time we're going to talk about, and maybe this is the section to really get real about what's going on in the Senate. Senator, one of the things that struck me was that you said at the Senate was that in your 14 years in the legislature, there has never been a time when it reached this level of negativity. And you said that in the context of the arguments that were happening at the time when Governor Mapp's brother, David Mapp, the VIPA chief, failed to appear in the Senate, and it sort of triggered this argument and accusations of cowing to the Mapp administration and factions in the Senate. What is going on?
Thank you for that question because I haven't really been that outspoken about it, and you might have seen the Minority Caucus saying some things at times, but I've been in the legislature 14 years, and this term has been my worst, and I attribute that to a lack of leadership. The majority leader, the Senate president, the whole majority caucus. It's more about being dominant and showing that they're the boss. And then the majority is compromised. Many of them, I don't know what the governor has over them or what favor he did for them or whose family members he hired and where, but they're compromised. So when the governor sent initiative down, and even when they're sometimes speaking out against it, they get texts from the governor, they get phone calls from the governor. And so,
you know this for a fact.
Yes, this is a fact. And there's sometimes they're in opposition to what the governor sent down, but then in the side room they say one thing, and then we get out there on the floor. So you get sort of perplexed when you're looking across there, but you said, Charles, wasn't that same person just a few minutes outside ago talking about everything that's wrong with this measure? And now they're in here saying yes. So for me, that's been bad. And then what's also bad is because there's the president of the legislature, when he chairs the sessions, allows his side to carry on with all this rancor and, disruption and does not put them in check. Like they had a big issue the other day with Senator DeGraff, who's actually a level-headed person. But every time we're trying to talk, and because we might make some pointed facts towards their position, then you have some main ones like Senator VLA, Senator James, and even Senator Francis, who I was all right with those guys, would start all this, and then the Senate president would not stop it.
And you're saying this is at a level that's beyond normal? 'Cause,
It's beyond
the
normal. It's
legislature-
schoolboys. If you saw the other day, Senator Sanders actually charged at me attempting to fight.
We did see that.
Mind you, now I'm a 29-year. I train. I'm currently a martial arts practitioner. I teach. I have a dojo.
Ooh.
Okay, so
You have a dojo
I have a
on St.
dojo,
Croix?
King Cobra Taekwondo. For the past 29 years, I've been teaching martial arts.
Oof.
Okay, I make people black belts. Okay, so for me to watch this happening under a floor of deliberation, and his colleagues egging him on as though it's
Were
some kind
they
of school.
egging? Because
Yes.
what we saw, I was watching this on Legit TV. We couldn't really see everything that's happening. I did see Senator Sanders kind of take off his jacket, but this is like the level of hostility that's going on.
And it's really distasteful. It's a turn off. It's disheartening. I can't find enough adjectives to tell you how sad it is where we've come. Now I can almost blame President Trump. Okay, because of his attitude in the White House, we've seen across the states and even our governor here with this pompous behavior. When leadership behaves this way, then everybody under feel like they have the right to do the same thing.
But President Trump aside, the other sad thing is that when things like this happen in the legislature, all the yelling, raising of voices, things like that, people say it's business as usual, and they've come to expect that kind of behavior, and that is sad.
But people like the melee, exactly. People like the juice. People like the sweet stuff, and unfortunately, it's like a big soap opera. And unfortunately, lights, camera, action, guys. And unfortunately, what that does, it does not leave us room to have real dialogue. I've often requested, that we speak off the record about some hot topic issues, especially so that when we get out in front of the camera, we're not out trying to do that upstage. We're trying to, we show off of intelligence. You have 15 talking heads in a room, but nobody's talking to each other. We're talking at each other. Everybody's idea has to be the one that reigns supreme. We're not going to get anywhere fast doing that. And, for the life of me, even for big issues, we were discussing the when the federal government wanted to put a senior lien on these SBA loans, disaster loans.
Small business.
And it was a big issue going on, and we recessed to go in the back room, and you know what they asked us about? They wanted to have our input on the bill moving the legislature from Frederickson to another place. And I'm like, in the middle of this, when we should be calling the bond council, when we should be talking, so they're not focused. So if we're not focused in the legislature, and then you have a governor who's sort of running ramrod, doing what he wants to, and then they're afraid to, you have senators who sometimes won't show up. Instead of going against the governor, they won't show up.
Well, let me ask you about that, because that's also the one thing that, that it's been kind of noticeable lately is the governor will say outright that he does not intend to enforce a certain piece of legislation, for example, that was, and he vetoed it and it was overridden by the Senate. Is there like pressure on certain senators to not go after the governor? Like, why is there no effort to maybe take him to court?
I believe that some of them have compromised themselves. I don't know if it was a family hookup with jobs. I don't know. I mean, I can speculate a lot of things. Okay, but whatever it is, their allegiance to the governor is sometimes beyond reason. Okay, because especially when they're on the side, when we're in the side room or in the hallways, they're willing to disclose that, he's going overboard and he's this, he's that. And then they get out on the floor and you want to know if that's the same person you just spoke to. So for me, I sort of have guarded conversations. I think sometimes they just have this talk with you to see where you're at so they can frame their argument. You don't really know, they're not sincere. Being in the legislature for 14 years, it's a strange situation because you can't take each other at word value. For me,
What would you advocate in a situation like that, Senator, when the executive branch practically says, well, we're going to do what we want to do?
Well, we should use the third branch of government, the judicial branch, to execute the law. The governor does not have the right to disobey a law, but if he's not challenged, and unfortunately a challenge comes, each of us individually can.
And have you advocated that to your colleagues to take the governor to court?
And what I haven't done so, in any real strong way, except just to tell him, what are you going to do? Are you going to continue to be a chump to the governor? Are you going to allow the legislature to be pushed around? This is the most the legislature has been called to special session in my 14 years. You know, the governor wants something, he figured the Senate sit, and sometimes he's right because they have received legislation from the governor and have sat on it for months and months without any action. So sometimes he's within his authority and within his place to do that. I think other times he's just, and what the governor is doing now that I don't like, to me, is pushing through a lot of initiatives really that's seen for political reasons. And you know, I'm not really trying to distort anybody's election effort, but the Senate's job is to scrutinize. The Senate's job is to be the checks and balance, to ensure that we're having solid legislation going forward that could help in the development of this territory. When we are compromised, for whatever the reasons are, then we compromise the people, we compromise the territory. And for those who are out there running and for the electorate who has to vote on individuals, you know, scrutinize the individuals in front of you. What have they been doing prior to coming running for office? What is their track record? How do they treat their family at home? How do they treat their wife, their spouse? You know, all of those things come into place. You can't say your personal life does not matter. It does matter because your personal life say who you really are.
Okay.
You know, so
Very well said. So, Senator, I wish we could continue talking about this, but that's practically all the time we have. I thank you for joining us, and thank you for talking about these very important issues. We talked about marijuana legislation today, as well as the reapportionment initiatives, and just kind of some of the things that are happening in the Senate. Thank you so much for joining us. We're here with Senator Positive T.A. Nelson. You're watching Decision 2018 Countdown. We'll see you next time. I'm April Knight.
Thank you. Choose wisely. Thank you.